Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into medieval India. We're talking about a time of huge, clashing empires, brand new revolutionary ideas, and just epic stories of resistance. It's a complex piece of history, for sure, but we're going to break it down into one clear, compelling story for you.
So, have you ever wondered how historians actually travel back in time? I mean, they don't have a time machine, right? Well, they do it by becoming detectives, following the clues that the past has left scattered all around us.
Okay, so let's get into it. Section 1, Decoding the Past, the Tools of History. To really understand medieval India, we first have to figure out how we know what we know. So, what's in a historian's toolkit? Let's take a look.
First up, you've got the physical stuff, the things you can actually touch. Think about it. Massive, majestic forts tell you so much about military strategy. Ancient coins, they're not just money, they're like little billboards from the past, telling us who was in charge, what the economy was like. And then there are these incredible stone inscriptions, called shilalas. I mean, these are literally carved in stone accounts of major events and royal decrees. You can't get much more direct than that. And of course, there's the paper trail, or, the palm leaf trail. We've got royal court records that give us this amazing inside look at how the government actually worked day to day. Then you've got biographies and travelogues, which give us a much more personal feel. We also have religious texts, these manuscripts called pothis, that get us into the heads of the people, showing us what they believed. And finally, official decrees, or farmans, which tell us exactly how the rulers laid down the law.
All right, next section, a land of many rulers, the pre-Sultanate mosaic. So, before the really big, famous empires took over, India was this incredible patchwork quilt of different kingdoms, all competing for power.
Starting around the 8th century, the whole subcontinent was basically a giant chessboard. You had the powerful Rajput clans holding down the north. Over in the east, the Palas were in charge of Bengal. And then you had the Cholas in the south. These guys were a true maritime superpower. We're talking about a navy so strong they could project their power all the way to places like Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Just incredible. And let's zoom in on Maharashtra for a second. The Yadava dynasty was the last major local power standing before the big invasions from the north began. Their capital was the incredible Devagiri fort you see here, and their rule was so important that it's seen as a golden age for the Marathi language and all its literature. Okay, Section 3, Empires Rise from the North, the Age of Sultans and Mughals. Because that fragmented landscape we were just talking about, it was about to be completely and dramatically reshaped by new forces coming from the northwest. So starting in the 11th century, you have these waves of invasions, Turkic and Afghan warlords sweeping into North India. This all came to a head with Muhammad Ghori's victory. He managed to get a foothold, and that small foothold would eventually grow into the massive Delhi Sultanate. This was a real game changer, the first time a huge chunk of the north was unified under one single powerful ruler. And just when you thought things had settled down, the next great wave arrived. In 1526, this prince from Central Asia named Babur comes storming in, takes on the Sultan of Delhi, and wins. Just like that, he founds the Mughal Empire. And this one event kicks off an absolutely legendary dynasty, passed down from Babur to his son Humayun, and then to his grandson, the man who would become known as Akbar the Great. Now, it was under rulers like Akbar that the Mughals really tightened their grip and built something that would last. They didn't just conquer, they built. They created this huge, centralized empire with a really smart administration, a single tax system, and a seriously powerful military. And they built symbols of that power, magnificent forts, palaces, and tombs that were meant to awe everyone who saw them. But here's what makes Akbar so fascinating. It was his whole approach to running this massive, diverse empire. He didn't rule by force alone. He promoted mutual respect between religions. Think about it. He married Rajput princesses. He appointed Hindus to some of the highest positions in his government. He even tried to create this blended faith called Dini Ilahe, the religion of God. And look at this coin right here. I mean, come on. It shows the Hindu deities Ram and Sita. That's not just a policy on paper. That's a stunning physical piece of his vision of tolerance. But here's the thing. While all this high-level political drama was going on, all the battles for land and power, something else was happening. A totally different kind of power was growing, not in palaces or on battlefields, but in the hearts of ordinary people. The story of kings and conquests, well, that's only half the story. Which brings us to our next section, a revolution of the heart, Bhakti, Sufism, and Sikhism. Because this was a powerful wave of social and religious change that was sweeping across the exact same lands these empires were fighting over. This was the Bhakti movement, and it really was a revolution of the heart. You had these incredible poet saints like Kabir, who basically said, forget all the complicated stuff. They rejected all the rigid rituals and the strict divisions of the caste system. Their message was so simple but so powerful. You don't need a priest or a fancy ceremony to find God. You can find God through pure, personal love and devotion. That's it. And this message just caught on like wildfire. It started in the South and just spread everywhere, all across the subcontinent. In every region, you had new saints popping up, each with their own unique voice. But here's the crucial part. They weren't speaking in some old scholarly language that only a few people understood. No, they were speaking and singing in the everyday languages of the people, spreading these really radical ideas of equality and personal faith to everyone.
And this wasn't happening in a vacuum. At the very same time, two other incredibly powerful movements were echoing these same ideas. You had the Sufi saints, the mystics of Islam, who were spreading a message of love and building bridges with Hindu traditions. And then, over in the Punjab, Guru Nanak founded a whole new faith, Sikhism, built on the bedrock principles of one God, total equality for all people, and selfless service to others.
All right, our final section, an empire's final chapter, the Great Unraveling. Because now we're going to see how all these threads, the political struggles and these deep cultural movements, all come together. And tragically so, under the reign of the last great Mughal emperor, Aurangzeb. So who was Aurangzeb? Well, on one hand, he was an absolutely formidable military commander. He pushed the Mughal Empire's borders out farther than they had ever been. But he was the polar opposite of his great-grandfather Akbar. He was a strict religious Puritan, and he completely threw out all those policies of tolerance. And that decision led to constant war and pushed away huge numbers of his own people. And the results of these policies? Absolutely catastrophic. His entire reign was basically one long war, fought on every single front. In the east, he was fighting the Ahoms in Assam. In the north, his actions literally turned the Sikhs into a powerful military force. He took his former allies, the Rajputs, and turned them into bitter enemies. And the biggest strain of all was his endless, decades-long war in the Deccan against the rising Marathas. It just bled the empire dry of money and manpower, fatally weakening it from the inside out. So when Aurangzeb finally died in 1707, he left behind an empire that looked huge on a map, but in reality was completely hollowed out by all this conflict. The stage was now set for new powers, especially the Marathas, to rise up and claim what was left. And that leaves us with one final, powerful question to think about. When a giant empire finally falls, what exactly rises up from the ashes to take its place?